join us by the fireside for our evening tales of true life's strange experiences with things that lie beyond the veil of the known and into the misty depths of the mysterious and unknown. Ghost story in Louisiana. When I was a child, I experienced something that traumatized me for the rest of my life. I was in late elementary school age, and I was living in a small town in the Midwest Indiana. It happened to be around November, and it was a pretty cold morning, and I was waiting for a bus, and I had two friends with me. To get out of the cold, there was an apartment complex where the owner would allow us to stand in the mailroom and wait for the bus. One morning, the door was locked, so we had to try and find another way to stay warm. We looked around, and on the same corner of the street as our bus stop, there was an abandoned house. It was an older style house with wood siding and one story, and it looked really creepy and abandoned. It had a big front porch. Jonathan, my friend, walked up the two sets of steps to the front door and immediately turned around and came back to us without saying a word. David, my other friend, went up to the front door as well. He stayed up there for about 2 or 3 minutes. And then suddenly, just out of the blue, he came running back down the steps with a face that was as white as snow. Finally, it was me. It was up to me to go and check out what had made my friends so scared of that house. I made my way up the old broken concrete steps and onto the creaking floor of the front porch. It was around 6 o'clock in the morning, so it was still very dark outside. With the light of a lone street lamp behind me, I cupped my hands and peered inside the window. Once my eyes adjusted, I noticed a house that was all kind of broken up without a skeleton. There were no lights, no walls, and even the floors and ceilings were giving way in some spots. I kept looking until I noticed a white figure standing at the other end of the house. It probably was about 30 yards away or so. It looked like a woman, and she had long black hair, and it was all matted. She seemed to be wearing a ripped white dress that resembled a wedding gown. As I watched her, I noticed that she was kind of hunched over. Her face was in her hands, and it was like she was crying. Suddenly, she turned to face me, and in the blink of an eye, she was face to face with me, with only the front door as a barrier between us. The force behind her was so strong that it actually knocked me down onto the cold front porch. As I sat there frozen in fear, unable to break the eye contact with her, she turned and screamed at me and said, "Go away!" I hurried to my feet, ran off the front porch, and I didn't stop running until I got to school that was 1.5 miles away. Wow, that's a really scary story. I wouldn't even have gone anywhere near that house after my friends coming back like that, looking scared. I would have just turned and left. You must be very brave. A figure in my room. I must have been about 16 or 17 at the time. I was upstairs and I was in the bathroom sitting on the toilet. Then I heard someone knocking on the door 3 times. I shouted out and asked what they wanted, and I assumed it was either my mom or dad, but there was no answer. So I finished my business and then I walked downstairs. My parents were both in the kitchen, they were making dinner, so I asked them what they wanted. Neither of them knew what I was talking about. So I explained that one of them just knocked on the door, but neither of them had apparently been upstairs. That house was built in the early 20s, and every single step leading up those stairs creaks loudly. It's nearly impossible to sneak up them. As teens, me and my sibling all tried. and every time the stairs would make a noise no matter how hard we tried. I never heard anyone on the stairs that time when I was up in the bathroom. Later in that evening, I caught my mum praying in the hallway, and she had a bowl of holy water. She'd been raised Catholic, but she did leave the religion long before, and I never asked her about it because that stuff makes her nervous. This one is from sometime around 14, when I was about 14 years old. I was sitting in the dining room and at the table with my mom doing some work. My dad is still at work, dogs are outside, and my siblings have already moved out. I clearly heard solid footsteps walking across the ceiling from one end to the other. I look round at my mom, as if to say, please tell me you heard that. Look. Her eyes are fixed on the ceiling. She then slowly meets my gaze. We share a moment and then try to pretend that nothing happened. The next story was when I was around 12, maybe a little bit older. My parents were already in bed and I was just finishing watching a movie downstairs. I turned off the TV and I was about to head upstairs. As I was about to ascend the stairs, I noticed a figure standing in the dark in the room facing the stairway. I reached for the landing light switch, thinking it's maybe my dad, but the lights didn't turn on. The figure was moving slowly closer, and somehow everything on the stairs was growing darker to the point where I almost couldn't see anything. There should have been a nightlight on in the room opposite, but it was all dark. I was so scared at this point, so I ran up the stairs as fast as my feet could carry me. I ran into my mom and dad's room. My dad, hearing all the noise, comes out to see what's going on. I tried to tell him about the lights, but they're back on. So he just tells me to go to bed. All the while, my eyes are glued to the stairs, waiting for whatever I saw to appear again. But I never see it again. Nothing happens. Oh my God, that is terrifying. A figure just appearing in the dark in your house, in your room, that would be enough to just drive me crazy. I would just run out of the house, and I definitely would never be able to sleep in that room again. You're brave. One creepy Christmas day. I used to sleep with my door open. In the hallway, there was a nightlight, and my bed used to face the door. I would just see white rectangles because my door faced the hallway wall. The only other thing I could see was a small frame picture on the hallway wall. It was Christmas, and I don't believe in Santa. I was preteen, but I literally never believed in Santa. I just played along with the other adults because I thought that's what you're supposed to do. I only lived with my two parents. Everyone had already gone to bed, and it must have been around 12 p.m. or something. Super late, and it was really dark outside. Then I looked at the doorway and I very, very clearly saw a shadow that was human shaped just appear there, just like that. It wasn't like someone standing in front of a light and casting a shadow. It was just a shadow standing there, and it was just by itself. Frozen, I just kind of lay there and stared at it for literally about 40 minutes, maybe even longer. I had a clock on the dresser near the door. I could see the time. I kept blinking in a way that would clear my eyes, but it didn't work at all. The shadow was still there. I swear I was awake because of how autonomous my actions between looking at the clock and everything else were. Everything was just crystal clear. I was absolutely terrified. I tried so hard to visually discern if it was an actual human being standing there or if my eyesight had just somehow sucked it in and was doing strange things with the picture on the wall, like some kind of hallucination. Because the shadow was in the same place, just a lot bigger and darker, reaching the floor. I spent at least half of those 40 minutes trying to convince myself that I had to run out of the room and get my parents. I don't know why that was a more brilliant idea than screaming for them, but that's what I decided on. So eventually, I managed to force myself to bolt from my bed and I run into their bedroom. I jumped on their bed and I just started crying my eyes out. They were both on the bed, so it's not like one of them was just standing out there. That's never ever happened to me before or since. I've had sleep paralysis many times in my life, but this was nothing like it. This was completely different, and it was terrifying.